Everything you write has value. Don't let them tell you that it doesn't.
You know, this is a bit of a hero's journey.
We have no money. We're playing a style of music people don't even like. And I'm sitting somewhere and trying to convince a band, we will one day be one of the biggest bands in the world, okay? This is like a game, do you understand? There's only so much time. Somebody's gonna win and somebody's gonna lose. So you need to have real chops as a writer, and you need to write in a way that cannot be imitated. Otherwise, you will die.
You're writing 100% songs and producing them.
There were times where people didn't like the way it was going down, which is that I was 100% writer.
Was it hard for them to see the windfall of publishing?
Yes.
How did you deal with that?
Poorly. We don't actually know what our value is going to be posthumously. She's like, you think everything you touch is important? And I was like, yeah, because everything I touch has value. I just don't know how much value. I patently refuse to use AI in my music creation. You're literally leaning into the thing that will destroy you.
How do you explain a path where you can make a living doing music?
Number one, I would say,
this season is presented by NMPA, the National Music Publishers Association, champions of songwriters and publishers everywhere. Welcome to And the Writer Is. I am your host, Ross Golan. Today's legend is to alternative and rock music what Chicago architects are to skylines. And this frontman / producer's unique tone and hauntingly rich compositions would be hung up in the Chicago Art Institute if they were hangable. I mean, maybe it's because I grew up playing in bands in the suburbs of Chicago, or maybe it's because Smashing Pumpkins riffs are how all of us in my generation learned to play guitar. Or maybe it's because I'm a Cubs fan. But, you know, you could talk about, the greatest bands of the last 4 decades, but you better be discussing the artistic influence and commercial impact his band has had, not just to me, but on the pantheon of recorded music. All the way from Highland Park, this artistic savant is still savanting. And the writer is Billy Corgan.
Wow, that's quite an introduction.
You don't introduce people like that on your podcast?
No. I literally just say welcome and we jump right in.
For people who don't know you, what are songs that you think people should recognize that you've released?
Honestly, that it's not really been I'll answer your question if you like, but it's not really how my life has gone. Because we had big hits in a certain period in the 90s, but more of my life has been around those things. You know what I mean? So, I don't want to say who, but I was once asked to be on the podcast, and I went and listened to a interview that they had done with another, sort of legendary musician, and the entire focus of the interview was about those kind of 7-8 years. And I thought, I just don't find this interesting, because then the artist just kind of fell into the same trope stories that they've told 1,000 times. So yeah, I could sit here and say I'm the guy who wrote 1979 or Bullet with Butterfly Wings, but when I walked through airports for many years, when I would be stopped, that's what people would want to talk about. Like the joke is, you're the rat in the cage guy. But over the last 10 years, because I had to sort of figure out a different way to be an artist in this new digital and social economy, it's less about that now, and it's more about something else. Like the band has become more institutional. My place in media has become sort of something that nobody expected, including me. So, I'm the guy who wrote those songs, but it feels like somehow reductive. And I don't mean to say I don't love my songs. It just, I lived with that for so long that I detached from the concept, because that was the only way to move forward. Otherwise, you're one of those artists out here who's wearing spangled jeans and you're walking around telling people about 92 or something for the rest of your life. And I just I can't be that guy.
The late Allie Willis, Allie?
Mm-mm.
She wrote like September for Earth, Wind, and Fire, and the Friends theme.
I literally just played that song for my kids like 2 days ago.
Just legend.
What a
right?
song! And
she's such a wonderful person. But she was like, don't ever ask about the hits. You want to ask about like it's the 4 years that no one was looking when you wrote those hits.
Well, in my case, it was the 10 years before, and it's been the 20 to 25 years after.
Yeah.
That's really defined my life. my father was a musician, and he, for a while, he kind of had this vibe like, oh, you got lucky. It was more so born of bitterness because he hadn't sort of gotten out of music what he would have wanted. So he treated my success as like, oh, it's like a comet. You're going to go up and you're going to come back down, kind of thing. Rocket, that'd be a better analogy. And then when he saw what I was doing, and he saw the multi-generations kind of coming to see me play, and the influence of the band, and sort of even the videos, whatever you want to sort of check on that, then he started to say, okay, now I understand. Like it's a much bigger thing than whether you had a moment. Because my dad was the guy who was telling me stories about jamming with Rufus and Shaka Khan in '74, 20 years later, as a sort of, I was close to the flame type of thing.
Was he a studio?
No.
Musician?
My dad was a sort of a rock blues-ish guitar player, kind of a more bluesy Carlos Santana. Could sing, very good looking. Wasn't a writer per se, and it just never clicked. And then drugs and women and jail, and he just derailed his life at sort of 30 something.
When did you have that conversation when he said, I get it now?
We had about 20 of those after a certain point. It's hard to explain because we had such a fractured relationship in my youth that we sort of over time put the pieces back together, and then they'd fall back apart. So there's not one conversation.
Yeah.
If there's one I would point to, he one time called me and said, I want you to know something. And I said, okay. And he said, I know I haven't always supported you the way you would have liked me to support you. And I'm like, yeah, that's definitely true. And he said, but now I realize you're one of the best songwriters in the world.
Wow.
And he said, particularly your lyrics. The lyrics got to him, I think, because he related to them, because he was around for those times that I was talking about. So that was like, wow, that was shocking to me, because he dismissed my musical pursuits. He wasn't supportive. He used to charge the band $10 to rehearse in his living rooms for electricity. I mean, it was a lot of dumb shit that went on. So for him to come full circle around the other side and be like, no, I totally get it. It was heavy for me, yeah.
That's an intense conversation.
There was a lot of those, yeah.
Growing up in Chicago is
you just got to laugh.
I mean, it's just like we were just saying, like the music, being in the music industry and living in Chicago.
Forget about it. There is no music industry in Chicago. There's an economy, but it's mostly pointed inward because it's ultimately about playing bars, and maybe you're going to catch a star. There is kind of an indie scene that kind of came up behind, say, Steve Albini, and Jesus Lizard, and
Urge Overkill.
And what's the label there? I can't think of it. It's a really good indie label.
I don't know. I mean, when I think of Chicago labels, I think like Chess and the like.
No, but there's the one indie label. It's very credible. I apologize to the guy because I should know it off the top of my head. I mean, there is a credible independent scene, but even that is inward facing because they don't assume anything other than working within the community. And my criticism of that community has always been, that community likes to throw rocks over the wall. And, I mean, we don't hear these words like we used to, but back in the day, the sellout thing was a big concept with them, and obviously it plagued people like Kurt Cobain. Like, am I selling them out? Am I still integral to the community? At the end of the day, it's just about reach. And if you can reach people, well, why wouldn't you want to reach people? And I've always complained, from Kim Gordon on down, this idea that, there's a kind of a priest class that decides what's cool and not cool in independent music. Well, we've had now 30 plus years of independent music being a huge part of the music business. So there's nothing wrong with reaching people. It's the promise of independent music that it's egalitarian and it brings everybody to the table. It doesn't matter your shape, size, color, socioeconomic background. That's the whole point of independent music, is everybody gets a seat at the table. And now, of course, with the rise of home recording, and here we are in a house doing your podcast, I mean, the systems have blown wide open where now everybody can have a seat at the table. That's the whole point of DIY culture. Was the Ramones pointed the way that you too could be on stage. You didn't need somebody's permission.
Yeah.
You didn't need to dress a certain way. You didn't need to act a certain way. You could say whatever you wanted to say. That's the promise, and it's now been fulfilled. So now let's just all mature and sort of move forward into this new economy.
Did anyone ever accuse you of selling out?
Oh yeah.
it's really hard to, when compositionally, the stuff that you would write and continue to write is so left of center that the fact that it became popular is sort of in spite of the fact, like, it's like, I don't think you can listen to Gish or, like, not to go all this, we can tell some of the journey, but going to Siamese Dream, these songs are really abstract. They fit. It's still like, I feel like in a different production, some of them could land in the Brill Building. They're really strong, but they're not pop.
Well, this is I'm a big systems guy. I don't want to bore your audience. The point being is, independent music exists for a vital reason, and let's call it the 80s, 90s version it was kind of inward facing. No one assumed they were going to get out of the class that they were in. So if you were lucky, using Chicago as an example, you would headline the Metro, which was 1,000 people.
Of course.
Okay. And all the great bands that I saw come through the Metro, whether it was My Bloody Valentine or the Pixies or Happy Mondays, Metro was the gig. If you were really big, like Echo and the Moneymen, you'd play the Aragon, which was 4,500. And that was it. And then Depeche Mode, who broke through they could play an arena sometimes on certain albums. Yeah. That was the economy that we were in. Yeah. So if you were in a guitar band in 1988, like we were, your aspirations were someday we can play the club and sell it out. So
was that your aspiration to begin? Were you thinking, in a way that small?
Because there was no economy that I could demonstrate where you would think we had any upside to reach a higher tier. Now, MTV started to blow that open with 120 minutes. And if you were lucky, so like, for example, when we toured with the Chili Peppers in 92 was Chili Peppers, Pumpkins, Pearl Jam. And what size venues were we playing? Oh, by the way, Chili Peppers were on MTV with Under the Bridge. Pearl Jam was on MTV with Alive, and we were playing 4,000 seaters for those three bands. That's the economy we were in. So that was like, wow, I really hit it, like sold out shows and people wearing the t-shirts. There was no thought you were going to be, the fact that Foo Fighters, Green Day, stadium bands, that's insane,
Why were you guys only selling 4,000 tickets? It's hard to imagine when I think of
that was the.
I think when I listened to of that era, because this is I was born in 80, so there's probably nothing more impressionable than the
you were right. You were right in the MTV wheelhouse. Yeah,
I was born, like, MTV was released the year I was born. Or maybe the year after. Yeah. So like it's such a part of my life. But when I think of those bands, what's fascinating is right now very few bands can get any sort of pop love. Like, they just aren't crossing over to what pop is. But if you listen to pop in the 90s, it feels like it was all bands, wasn't it? Or was I just listening to Q101 and I have a skewed version of my life?
There's a lot there to unpack, so I'll try to keep it simple, because again, I don't want to bore your audience.
They're also nerds, so they're ready. They're ready.
Okay, God bless. Okay,
in.
So let's get nerdy. If you look at if Paul Whiteman, I think with maybe Japanese Sandman in 1927, I believe was the record, that was the first million seller. A million seller in 1927 meant you sold $1 million worth of records. It wasn't 1 million units. Okay, I think that was the breakthrough record. So if you say that's the beginning of like what we would call pop, right? There's real money in popular music. Yep. Somebody can go into a studio, and back then they'd have to do it live. So probably for a $1,000 session by today's economics, you could sell $1 million worth of plastic.
Yeah,
and that we're still in that business on some level, right? Okay, so every decade, 20s, 30s, 40s, I don't have to list them all. Up until the 2000s-ish, every decade, popular music was whoever can climb their way up that ladder and get enough critical mass to bring an audience. Now, let's use Nirvana as an example, because that's oftentimes cited, and obviously so, as the grunge moment alternative breakthrough. Nevermind. I remember sitting with Butch Vig. Nevermind was actually selling more albums than every other record in the country, and it still wasn't number one. Because the charts back then were rigged, that just because you sold enough records didn't mean you were number one. They had other weird stuff that they would do to keep records from being number one. They had systems in place to make sure that nobody could kind of bum rush their way to number one. You had to have a certain amount of radio play and this and all this other crap that they did. So Nirvana was the number one record seller for like 4 or 5 weeks before they finally crested to number one. They actually tried to hold that thing back.
And who's in front of it? Like probably someone like a Mariah Carey.
Who knows?
Or whatever at the time.
Who knows? So where am I trying to go with all this? There are systems of control in place where it's like they don't want certain things kind of bum rushing. You know, there's even like been some recent incidents where people will sell enough digital copies to technically be number one, but Billboard won't recognize them as number one because they quote unquote don't want people gaming the system. So if you just put out a record and you have enough fans because of your podcast and they all go buy your digital single, you should be number one, but they'll do some weird thing like, well, this thing didn't report this and this. They're still doing it.
I mean, this was the whole issue with bundling tickets and bundling, bundling in general.
But you asked me to nerdy stuff. Sorry, there's a back end point. So here's what I'm after. So, but somehow in the last 15 or so years, the business at all, the unseen faces decided that pop was the only game that they were really interested in as it pertained to the charts. Okay. Rock, and somebody can fact check me in the comments, but based on my understanding, rock still sells about 70% of the tickets in America.
What?
Yes.
That's wild.
Okay. So
so
ask yourself a fundamental existential question. Why is a business where the rock artists are still the dominant ticket sellers, right? Why in that business is there no representative of rock in the charts, on the Grammys? Okay.
That's real.
Okay.
Got it.
Ask yourself why. I'm not conspiracy theorying. Why
do you think that is? Why do you think rock music doesn't get its due?
Okay. Quick answer. I think that when social media really clicked in, pun intended, right? Clicks. Okay. The social pressure, the massive audience that shows up for a Taylor Swift thing, right? Her ability to amass a social audience, Beyonce. When the music business saw that, they said, right, this is where the business is going. This is where the business is going. So it was no longer, hey, here's a jump ball. Whoever can get to the top of that mountain, you're going to be number one. And you're going to get the benefits of this holy designation of number one. I mean, when I was number one with Melancholy, we debuted at number one. We were truly number one. There was no, that wasn't rigged. We sold as the records you're supposed to sell. Okay, so forever I'll be a guy who said, I had a number one record. The chance of a rock artist having a number one record in this culture is zero. Zero. Ask yourself why, when they did a tribute to Ozzy this year, Youngblood's standing in the crowd watching, and he just won a Grammy for doing an Ozzy song live at the last Sabbath show, which I was also a part of. Who's making those decisions? Okay, what I'm saying is the music business et al. Is right now behind the curve that what's coming from the rock side, which has had to go back to ground and get tough again and not rely on charts and not rely on radio stations to get them over. Now there's just going to be a whole new crew of artists that aren't relying on charts and aren't relying on approval. And once rock kicks back in, it's going to wipe the pop thing out again not because they won't have numbers and they won't have social backing. They will. Taylor Swift will still be able to amass an army whenever she flicks her beautiful hand. God bless. But rock is going back to the primary thing, which is creating emotional connection. You cannot game music where you can remove the emotional connection like a Jenga thing and make it strictly a numbers game.
I think
does that make sense? Is it at least? I know I'm giving you a cloud answer, but does it make sense in its totality?
Yes. I mean, I'm the co-chair of the songwriter composer wing of the Grammys, and I see how those things are constructed. And I don't think there's like a Sven Gali kind of. No. And not that you're saying.
I call it group. I call it groupthink.
That may be. I will say this. I think that the next move is also going to be rock, and will be anything analog. I think every fan out there, when, there are songwriters that are very savvy, young, excited to help push some initiatives, one being maybe like a toggle switch on Spotify and Apple that removes AI created content so it doesn't land in your algorithm. And because I think this pushback of abundance of digital slop is going to be the guys who learn how to play guitar and play in a garage. And I don't even, lyric wise or whatever the authenticity is in the poetry that people write is almost what will be as important in the future, I think, than it's ever been, just because I think everyone just wants analog. I think everyone craves this is created by a human sound.
Right. Well, what I'm suggesting and try to summarize is the music business in its groupthink made a decision that pop was going to be the game because of numbers, right? But now what we're finding with social media influencers is numbers don't mean anything. It's whether or not the people who are listening or watching actually give a shit.
Yeah.
And will then animate and do things with that emotion. So in new social media economy, it's better to have 5,000 followers that will buy a t-shirt, support you, go to a gig, than 50,000 who just click and never do shit at all in your direction.
Do you feel that from...
So can I connect one thing?
Please.
Because it dovetails with what we talked about. For 15 years in this town, I was told my only value was connected to the peak years that I had in this town between 1992 and 1990, whatever, 99, right? I had to go out and prove new proof of concept. And now my value, yes, that's part of my value, but my value is far greater than that. That's why I'm saying rock artists have had to go back out of the system, figure it out, and now we're coming again, and it's going to be like a marauding army running over the pop kids. Those smart ones have already started figuring it out and are lining themselves up more like alternative artists, and you can hear it in their songwriting and their production. So the smart ones are already ready to make the adjustment.
Who are the smart modern rock bands, in your opinion?
Bring Me the Horizon would be one that I would point to. Sleep Token. Because what they've done is they've found a way to exist in a pop economy, which is, hey, Duke Ellington, pop just means popular.
Yeah.
Write great songs.
Yeah, going back to 27
okay.
and like
you got to still write great
Armstrong. We get into
you still got to write great songs.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay,
yeah.
but they carry the mark of people who understand what people are going through in the world. Pop, by and large, is a show, right? I'm not saying rock isn't a show, but pop is predicated on the idea that you can amass social energy from all, fashion, hot takes on social issues. You know what I mean? It becomes less about identity and more about like, hey, we're all in this together. I have my army. The Swifties and the Beehives and all this stuff. Rock is the complete opposite. It's like, no, we're the same. We're the same. You said I'm from Deerfield. I'm from Glendale Heights in Illinois. Like, and I'm not trying to pretend I'm from some other planet. I mean, I'm a fucking nerd who was a good songwriter and knew what I was doing.
In 1991, when Gish comes out, well, maybe let's go to 93, 95.
Sure, wherever you want to go.
Like the Smashing Pumpkins, don't you think the fans wouldn't they be called the Pumpkins? Wouldn't they be called, wouldn't there be some version of that I think that Virgin
I think back there with pumpkin heads, maybe.
The pumpkin heads?
Yeah,
but it's not like, they're I think the difference was this, that you would go see these, I know some of those more the Swifties, what they've done really well is they have really highlighted a lot of other artists throughout this thing to bring up other things in a way that, you're talking about, when you're talking about Chili Peppers, Smashing Pumpkins, and Pearl Jam, it's just this wild thing where it was like, yeah, all the fans were friends with each other. Like nobody went to that concert was like, fuck you guys, like your band sucks.
Yeah.
Like it seems like everyone
but I think
the genre was incredible.
But if I pick up what you're putting down, it has more to do with the difference in social economies. Back then, alternative people identified like we're kind of a tribe, we're amassing, and we want to push these things forward because it extols our values or it represents something we feel or the guy on stage is like the guy I went to high school with, or my boyfriend or girlfriend, or there was an identity thing. Heck, when I saw Metallica, and James Hetfield was only like 2 years older than me, with like he had pimples just like I did. I was like, that could be me. There was an identity thing that went on. It wasn't this yes queen, I'm an untouchable goddess. I'm never going to get old. I'm never going to age. We're going to live in perpetual, perfection or something.
Can I suggest that there's a difference in gender? That I think that there's a push for the music business going all the way back to, you can go through Diana Ross and whatnot, and the objective of the business is to create archetypes around women that make them feel untouchable, whereas a lot of the male artists, excluding maybe the younger sort of maybe boy bands or the young, but like the credible male artists in many ways are not pushed to be superheroes outside of their skill.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but then how do you explain Courtney?
I mean, I think Courtney's authenticity in that world is the thing that makes her an anomaly in that space.
Right.
I mean, there are so few people who, but she. I mean, how do you describe Courtney Love within the pantheon of alternative artists?
Well, that's a complicated one because she's been stuck more with the same thing that they stuck with Yoko Ono, who was a highly, highly credible performance and visual artist before she ever met John Lennon. And I was friends with Marianne Faithfull, who was there the night that John and Yoko met on the ladder, as John Lennon went to the top of the ladder and looked at whatever was painted on the ceiling.
Wait, what is Yoko. That story?
That's what the night John and Yoko met was at an art gallery in England, I think 1966. John went to the gallery. He was married to his wife, who he had Julian Lennon with, that's Cynthia Lennon. And that's the night John and Yoko met. And Yoko was with, I think, the guy maybe from the art gallery was her husband. And that's the night John and Yoko met, and obviously changed the course of the Beatles and in many ways pop history, right? And there was this instant connection, artist. I mean, she was a highly credible visual performance artist, and he was obviously the biggest rock star by what they didn't call people rock stars back then. He was the biggest musical artist in the world, or in the biggest musical artist band. And you had this meeting of the minds. John, who highly was seeking some kind of credibility he couldn't get with success, and Yoko, who had a greater vision of how to reach people, and obviously imbued that in John, and he ended up writing songs like Imagine. I don't think he would ever written that song without Yoko. Mm-hmm. So in our generation, you have Kurt and Courtney. When Courtney and Kurt met, and they had met before, I'd met Courtney, so they did have some connection there. Courtney was a highly regarded female artist with seemingly no commercial upside, but had uber credibility. First record produced by Kim Gordon of Sonic Youth, independent label. She burst on the scene. She was the talk of all independent music. And then here's Kurt, who at that moment was the biggest rock star of his time. It's very similar dynamics. And they literally did the same thing to her. They turned her into a heretic and a witch.
But that is the archetype. Her archetype wasn't an angel. Her archetype that made the
but are you saying
interested was because she played. She didn't play the archetype thrust on her is that she's the devil, that she's the dark, she's the witch.
Sure.
She is that that is what I'm saying, is that I think the industry nobody was like, I don't remember thinking that you or Anthony Kiedis or Eddie Vedder had to be an angel or a devil.
I misunderstood where you were going with that.
I'm saying that even in that world, the commercialization of Courtney's career of that time, and I'm sure that there's I don't remember what label she wasn't also on Geffen. What
They
was
were.
she?
They were. I
She
think they
was
were
also
on.
on Geffen.
I think they were on Geffen. Yeah.
You know, like that's not by accident that there's this the imagery around it
I see.
is playing an
Okay,
archetype.
I misunderstood, so that's why I was going off on a different tangent.
Yeah. I just think that that's a
But are you saying the pop stars are sort of presented as in opposition to the thought? Are they presented as angels?
they're or devils. Like I think you look at the and there are some male artists who go all the way there. The Marilyn Mansons of the
Mhm.
world like played a character that went all the way there. But I do think that the career arcs of the Madonnas of going all the way angel or devil,
I
all the way
see, I
angel
see.
devil,
Okay.
Taylor Swift,
Okay, I
angel,
understand,
devil,
yeah.
is unique to being female in this space.
I do agree with you on that.
And I think that there's a lot of pressure to be something.
Do you think?
that is?
I'm just curious. Do you think that that's because labels were predominantly and have been predominantly male run, and so they're asking the artists to sort of fall in line with the best way they think those artists can be marketed? Because here, let me just throw this out. There was that sort of beautiful moment at the end of the 90s. Let's call it the Lilith Fair kind of movement. There were suddenly a bunch of hot girls playing piano.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Okay. But they were presented in the beginning as, hey, I'm a hot girl playing piano and I got this beautiful song. 2 years later, they're on the cover of FHM showing skin because that's where that economy was going. And in many ways, it destroyed the credibility that they seemingly had just built a couple years prior by, hey, I'm a female artist. I'm presenting my music with complete integrity.
Yeah. That's interesting. I mean, when I think of that era, and when I think of Lilith Fair, and I'm thinking of Sarah McLachlan, or I'm thinking of, Emmylou Harris was probably part of that. Obviously, Indigo Girls and stuff. Where's which artists are you referring to?
I'd rather not say their names because I think I don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Oh well,
I don't want to presume that they were or they weren't engaging in, let's call it, overt marketing to make sure that people paid attention to them.
Yeah, I mean, I know of some other Chicago artists that whatever. I think that you're not.
Well, Liz Fair example is a Chicago artist. To my best of my knowledge, and I know Liz a bit, she never sexualized herself. She was overtly sexual in her music, and that was part of what attracted a lot of people to her, both male and female. Great songwriter, groundbreaking music. But she never seemed to turn the corner where she felt she had to sexualize herself
more
in an image way.
Yeah.
But I saw that happen with some of the Lilith people, and I was shocked because the way I read that was somebody called them up and said, "You better figure this out." You know what I mean? Like, basically what you're bringing to the table isn't enough.
Yeah, I don't know who that person is unless it's bad management.
We can talk off camera. How's that?
Yeah, fair enough. No. I don't mean the person who did the changing. I'm talking the person who tells, hey, you should be more sexual. You should be more.
No, what I'm saying is in a predominantly male dominated industry. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
are women under particular pressures to market themselves in a particular way? And obviously, I have more knowledge in the '90s than I would do now. Now,
well, I think one thing that's interesting, and this is different in the pop space than it is, I mentioned like Mariah in the '90s, whatever. She wrote something like I think 18 of her 19 number ones she wrote. Like she was like a real writer, and I think the one of the, and by the way, the one that she didn't was the cover of Jackson 5. So, I think there's this image that these women are being forced to do the archetypes be in an inauthentic way. And I think most of those people that I mentioned are actually great songwriters. As a writer, what's so exciting, I write a lot of musicals, I write a lot of 100% songs. There aren't that many 100% writers in this current space.
Yeah.
And here you are, somebody who, a lot of times there are producers who take publishing. There's all these people who take publishing. But man, he produced a lot of your shit too, and a lot of the big stuff. So like, there's not a lot of arguing that what a real songwriter is, and you're a real songwriter. When you look at young versions of Billy Corgan today, how do you explain a path where you can make a living doing music?
Are you saying if I was 20 years old today, what choices would I make? Is that
Sure.
a fair way to
Yeah, I
boil
mean,
down your question?
there's another kid, like your kids, if they went to the high school that they could go to, would be going to the exact same school district I grew up in.
Yeah.
And if I didn't, there was no music industry. I don't know why I started buying books about the music industry in Deerfield, Illinois, but I still don't know to this day why I
Here we
bought
are.
a Tascam 4-track and started figuring out how to do it.
Was it with Portaflex or with, we're going
I mean,
way back?
I still have all of those tapes.
You know, now they have plug-in emulations of those pre's so that you can get that sound again.
Oh my God.
When I was doing it back then in the 80s, I was like, I can't wait to get rid of this sound, you know?
Dude, the distortion that it would do is incredible. Every time you plug in a guitar, it's just going, and it's like, it's kind of amazing.
Okay,
but
so
you're talking to, Billy, your kids decide to do music. Let's say that.
How about this? Is it right to frame your question as what advice would I give to the 20-year-old version of my type of artist?
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, I would say if you're an idiosyncratic artist and you have a vision, you have to absolutely build your own world, and you have to build a world that cannot be easily imitated.
Yeah.
Both those things need to happen. So you need to have real chops as a writer, and you need to write in a way that only you can write, and then in a way that cannot be imitated. That's it. Otherwise, you will die.
The world building is so essential to an artist right now, but what you did well throughout your career is build worlds within each album.
Well, that was based on the Beatles, and that was based on Bowie. And I couldn't have imagined how it was going to sort of work long term, because in those fallow years between, say, 2001 and 2016, it actually worked against me. Because in the new coming social economy, being a band with one sound, and we know who they are because I played in a generation with many of them, that actually was to their benefit. But now in this new emerging economy, having variants is actually working quite well.
Yeah.
So Bowie and excuse me, Bowie and the Beatles pointed the way that you can be Love Me Do and Strawberry Fields, or in Bowie's case, Ziggy Stardust and Let's Dance. So I ripped that whole cloth. That wasn't some inspiration I had. I was like, I want that. And I would say to the band, we need to be a different band on every record.
I mean, you really took the storytelling to heart. And when you
too far maybe, but
no, man, especially now, if you did if I were to go and take, the double albums, the triple albums, the rock opera.
Yeah.
Are you approaching the composition of an album from a short story version? How do you create the outline that becomes these epic stories?
That's the right question, but it's actually sort of a more broad concept, if you don't mind me exploring it. And then if I'm not doing a good job, boil me down.
I got you.
Because you're asking how I get there, but I don't get there the way you think I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, I read two influential books on me about Picasso. I wish I could tell you the names of the books. The person I think wrote 4 books on Picasso's life and influence and the atmosphere that he grew up in. So they're easily found if you want to dig around. But the idea that was so inspiring to me was it said Picasso existed in a social and artistic economy that, unbeknownst the mythology, actually influenced him. So when Picasso was a known artist in Paris in the 1920s, the art dealer would come down and say, "Hey, those pictures you did of the trees, those are selling. Can you paint some more tree pictures?" And Picasso would just paint more tree pictures because he needed the bread. So I was like, okay, that sounds like the music business. That sounds like somebody sitting in an office go, "Bullet with Butterfly Wings sure did good. I'd sure like Rat in the Cage too. Would be really good right about now." We've all had those experiences, however implied or not implied. So for me, it starts with the concept of I need to build a world that exists on every level, not just a musical level, not just a musical marketing level, but a world that has sustain. So it's what is the emotional narrative of the record? What is the look of the record? What can the songs exist in their own oxygen without the production? Can the production exist in its own oxygen even if you don't like the songs? So you're, for lack of a better word, you're branding every aspect of the era because you don't know what out of the era is going to sustain.
Yeah.
Now that's the world building, right? I used to have a girlfriend and say she would accuse me of being arrogant, and this is the way she would accuse me of being arrogant. She's like, "You think everything you touch is important," and I was like, "Yeah, because everything I touch has value. I just don't know how much value."
Well, this is the other thing. Like in the end, obviously, I don't know if your kids have totally discovered all the music that you've done, but like the best thing I've ever written is, and I've talked about this before, I have this concept album called The Wrong Man, which has now gone to stage and other stuff.
Oh, wow.
But it tells a story, and it's like the collective streams on that is probably about 1 million streams. I have multiple songs that are in the billions. And like the best thing I have is a story that's well structured,
Right.
with the full thing. And to me, that's the most successful
Okay,
thing
can
I've ever
I
done.
stop you there? Because I think this
Yeah,
will
please.
illustrate for you and hopefully your audience what I'm trying to explain. So right now, if we freeze this moment, okay, on a piece of paper, it's obvious where your value is. Your value is with the songs that have streamed 1 billion. But 50 years from now, and hopefully you're still here with us, the thing you say is the thing that you feel has the most value. That might be the thing that's actually still paying the bills, where the songs will have fallen by the wayside because they're cultural moments, or the world changes in terms of how people consume their media. We don't actually know what our value is going to be posthumously. So if you're truly an artist, which I like to think I am, you must believe that all work that you create has value.
Has equal value?
No, value. Okay. It isn't up to you to decide, but you are in a relationship with the audience. And I'll give a perfect example. I wrote a song for the Batman movie with that Arnold and Uma Thurman were in, Batman Forever.
Sure.
I think George Clooney was Batman in that one. Okay. So I think it was Warner Brothers, maybe is my memory.
That's right.
So they hired us or whatever, commissioned us, and I had this idea of writing, having the same song played fast and slow. We worked with Nellie Hooper, who came out of the Massive Attack world, had done Sinead O'Connor, Nothing Compares to You. That Nellie did that production, that stark, beautiful production. So Nellie was coming from a completely different world than I was in. And the band was coming off of Melancholy, so I wanted to do the rock version of the song. We did that. We made a video. Joel Schumacher directed the video. The whole thing turned out to not work. It just didn't click. The song didn't click. It just didn't work. The slow version of the song, the fast version of the song was called The End is the Beginning, and the slow version was called The Beginning is the End. Same song, just voiced completely differently. Nellie really leaned into the slow version, and it's got this menacing cinematic tone, okay? Song comes out on the soundtrack. Again, we did the video and the whole thing for the rock version. Nobody cared. K-Rock didn't play it. It was a disaster, okay? The slow version, in the time between what I'm about to tell you, between the release and this thing that happened, nobody ever stopped me in an airport and talked to me about the slow version of the song. No fans said they loved the song, nothing, okay? So fast forward, I don't know, 15 years, 20 years, it becomes the song for the Watchmen trailer, when it was the Watchmen movie.
Wow.
People sing that song. I'm getting chills telling you the story. People sing that song connected with those visuals. It went from a nothing, nobody gave a shit, to an instant classic. Overnight. A song that was like on the cutting room floor. Okay, so I've experienced somebody picking a song out of nowhere, and who knows how they even found the song. Whoever did the trailer. So, and then fast forward with me playing Madison Square Garden, sold out, and I'm on stage playing that song to an audience that knows the song.
Beautiful.
Where 2 years before, if I'd played it, they would have been like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's not up for us to assess value. Now, we're human. That one's better than this, but sometimes we're just wrong. you have to trust your artistic voice enough to say, if I'm going to put it in the world, I have to, at least in a stewardship way, believe that at some point it's going to find its place.
When you look at your discography, do you think of something like Adam, which is like,
For your honest, triple record, 33 songs.
Yeah, but it's a rock opera.
Well, I use that to sort of explain what it was. Yeah, it's a concept record, but rock opera I knew would sort of poke people in the ribs, so I went with that.
I mean, yeah, but like, I know the effort it takes to make 33 songs to tell a story. It's fucking hard.
Okay, but when I did the rock opera, never in a million years did I think I'd be on stage with the Lyric Opera in Chicago, 7 sold-out shows doing Melancholy as an opera.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so now when I talk to people in the opera world, because I'm just about to do more shows of the Melancholy opera, both this year and next year, this year in Europe, next year in America, okay, they're going, what else have you got? So now I've got 3 works already composed, Melancholy, Machina, and Autumn, that are voiced for the stage. But when I made them as rock records, okay, I didn't get the 3,000 word review in The Guardian telling everybody Jesus was walking on water because I wrote this great work. If I went with what the world tells me, those works don't have the value that I think they have. So at the end of the day, what confidence do I have as a writer to say I believe in what I've done? Again, I'm not saying we don't live in the moment we're in. Of course we all do. But on some level, the artist has to be able to remove themselves from that moment and sort of say, I think there's something here that's of greater value.
This is the process thing that I love about music. I go and I shop songs now that are 15 years old all the time.
Yeah.
And it's there because I know the song's great. And the right person is going to cut these songs. And it's like, to me, the exciting part is that few people know those songs.
Sure.
Once the songs are out and some big artist cuts them, I don't care anymore.
Okay, but let me give you an example. Back to Courtney for a second. I'm on the phone with Courtney circa 1994, right? Right in that era. They were the prom queens on the cover of every magazine. I'm on the phone with Courtney. I said, I'm going to do a BBC radio session. Courtney says, make sure you do a cover. They love that. So I go in my little record stack, which I didn't have a lot of money, so it was only about this big if you show on video. Okay, and I'm flipping through, and I come across the Fleetwood Mac record. I take it out, and I find Landslide. Never been a single, right? Wasn't considered a classic, wasn't played on the radio. I do the song, right? We get to, BBC is hardcore union. You only have 4 hours, right, to do the session. There was technical issues, humming a microphone. So by the time we were going to record Landslide, there was only 20 minutes left in the session. The engineer, who doesn't give a shit about the Smashing Pumpkins, says, you might as well just hang it up. You're not going to record a song in 20 minutes. I said, well, I'm going to use all 20 minutes. I went in a booth, literally stuck like whatever mic in front of the acoustic guitar, recorded the acoustic guitar, no click, live, then had him play it back, did 2 versions of the solo, picked the one version, then did 2 takes of the vocal, made it just across the line, enough time for me to listen to both takes. I said, use the front half of this vocal and the back half of this vocal, and we put it out on a B-sides record, and it became a hit. And then after that, then Stevie Nicks is on the phone thanking me for all the publishing money that she got, and then since then it's been a hit now 4 times over.
Yeah.
I'm not taking credit. She wrote the song. It's a brilliant song. But I cracked the code on the thing where if I hadn't cracked the code, would the Dixie Chicks have had a hit? You know what I mean? It's like, that's what I'm saying because I assume you have a lot of writers that watch your show. Everything you write has value. Don't let them tell you that it doesn't, just because it's on a record. Some of the most famous George Gershwin songs were in shows on Broadway where they're total bombs. Yeah. They only lasted 3 weeks and the show closed.
I mean, this is one of the things why I've been arguing that I think that the Grammys should actually give best song for musicals and not just best album, because I think for that exact reason, like the body of work, the song may supersede the body of work in that capacity. But that's a crazy story. Does Courtney Love take credit for Landslide?
We're very friendly these days, so I'm saying this with love. Courtney takes credit for songs that I wrote before I met her and said the song's about her.
Like what?
I don't know. She'll take credit for songs. She'll say songs that are written about her that weren't written about her, and then she'll say songs were written about her before I knew her.
That's great. How did you meet Courtney Love?
It's a funny story. We were on the same label, and they sent me a 7-inch or something. Ho was putting out a 7-inch. We were on the same label, Caroline, at the time, and I saw her picture on the back, and I thought, I need to meet this person. I just had a sense of a feeling. I don't know how to explain it. And then maybe a month later, they were coming to town, and so I went to see them, and they stayed at my apartment, and we're still here. We are 35 years later, still working together, still friends.
Was that post Gish? Or is that
That would have been probably post Gish. Yeah, I think Gish had come out at that point.
Let's tell a little bit of your story, because not all of our people are aware of like the order of things, and even
Sure.
it was nice for me to have a refresher. You spend the 70s in Chicago through your most of your childhood. I know you. I was saying before, I was like, I mean, that's John Wayne Gacy at his prime.
I was actually telling my
it's
I was telling my kids the other day about when I was their age. Gacy was an active serial killer, and it was known there was an active serial killer going on. They just didn't know who it was. And about a mile or so from where I lived, they found a kid, sadly, dumped in a river or something. And it was purported at the time that maybe it was connected to the serial killer. They never connected that murder with Gacy. So we were living in the ambiance of that time, and I remember it very clearly because we were told, like, don't get in cars, and it was like there was this vibe out there that there's this monster loose. Of course, we know the story now, but at the time we lived with that.
The grime of Chicago and the Chicago suburbs in the 70s and early 80s is really intense, and at least I mean that's the image that I have of it. And you were saying about how your dad was kind of all over the place doing some crazy shit.
Yeah.
How did you learn to be so proficient at an instrument during that kind of exterior junk?
Yeah. I had a flash of inspiration, saw a friend playing a guitar in a basement one day, and I went to my father and I said, I want to play guitar. And he said, okay, if you can get the money, we'll get you a guitar. So he kind of put it on me. I don't think he thought I was serious. It's not like he lent me a guitar and said, let's see if you're going to stick with it, then I'll get you a guitar. Yeah. It was like proof of concept. Get some money, get a guitar, and then let's see if you play the thing. So it's a long story, but I did get a guitar. And my father finally delivered it to me. And my father was the type of person, he had no patience for anything. So he literally hands me the guitar and he's going out the door because we didn't live together at that point. And I said, whoa. Like, I don't even know what to do. Like, can you show me how to plug into an amp and, like the basics? He goes, okay. What do you want to learn? And I go, House of the Rising Sun, Animals, because I love the guitar line. And to this day, I still love like the flipping of the major and minor modes. It's in my music all over the place. And so he sat for 5 minutes, said, hold your hands like this. Here's how it goes. Here's the chords. Got to go. Boom, out the door. So I had my 5-minute lesson, and now I've got the guitar in my hands. This is what I consider a weapon now. And nobody was home, and I had that sort of moment of like, okay, I know nobody in my world right now thinks I'm going to take this thing seriously. I loved music. I listened to music obsessively up to this point. So I was the type of guy who'd have a record on 8 hours a day. I mean, I was literally that guy. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm really going to do it. So I made this weird decision that day. I'm going to play 4 hours a day. I don't know why I picked it. I don't know why I picked 4 hours a day. I would time myself. And I would get up in the middle of the night, play it in the middle of the night in the dark, no light, and just learn how to play the guitar without singing. I was obsessed. And I played it's a true story. I played 4 hours a day for 4 years in a row. And when I hit the 4-year anniversary, I was like, I'm good. And then I was still practice, but not like it did then.
When did you write your first song?
About 18, probably.
So you were that good at guitar, and you still were patient enough not to try to write something?
I never thought I would be a songwriter. I wanted to be a gunslinger type. I was into Ingvar Malmsteen, Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads. I thought I was going to be a guitar player. So in my mind, writing was writing a riff.
What year is this at?
I guess I got the guitar probably 81.
Yeah.
And so, so by, junior, senior year of high school, I start like conceptually wrapping my head around the idea of writing songs. I had like a metal band. We had no lead singer, so I would write riff-based songs like Iron Maiden, this riff to this riff to this riff. There's clips on YouTube of me playing at 17.
I mean, it
shredding.
explains, like, because, the what I call identifiers, or even just what, Beethoven's Fifth starts with some sort of refrain, and all your songs are, what the song is before you even start singing.
Yeah.
Very few of your songs, both as the band solo, but very few of them start with you singing. Most of them start with a guitar part or something that gives an identifier.
That's Tony Iommi's influence on me. Tony to me is like a masterful painter. Somehow with riffs, he paints this celestial picture in my mind. So I'm forever chasing Tony, at least emotionally, not always literally.
Right.
But Tony and he was influenced by Dvorak.
Mm-hmm.
I think he talked about Holst, maybe 9 planets or what. This idea that doom, 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 boom. Tony was attracted to that, and he said he was looking for that in the guitar.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's how I see it. It's like basically it's a classical approach to rock.
Your compositions are all very classical based in many ways. Like, you clearly studied music theory of some sort, whether you meant to or not.
No, actually, it's a crazy story. I studied no music theory, taught myself, and my father only gave me 2 lessons in my entire life. He arranged with some guy to give me some lessons, So I went to the guy's house, first lesson I played, and then the guy said, "Okay, come back again." And I brought my guitar, and he said, "Well, you don't need that." And then he just sat at the piano and played chords. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, you need to study music theory. You've already taught yourself all this stuff."
Yeah.
And he was a collegiate level music theory teacher. And he was like, "I don't know how you learned all this stuff. I taught myself music theory on my own. I have no training. I can't read notes, nothing."
I mean, Da Vinci taught himself a lot of things in a summer.
Yeah, I don't.
It's like what you taught. Like, you taught yourself. It was innate, or it was hard work. But like,
I think it's math.
Yeah, it's totally math.
I think it's math. I think I'm just good at math. I think once I understood the mathematical principles of theory, then it just kind of worked in my brain. Yeah.
I was,
or as we like to joke, lots of 7ths and 9ths.
Yeah, there you go. When the band starts, it's 1988, so there's a jump between 81, playing guitar, doing all that.
Yeah.
Like, how do you meet Jimmy? How do you meet the band? NMPA is our lead sponsor yet again. What is the National Music Publishers Association? What do publishers have to do with songwriters anyway? Well, unlike artists who can be unsigned artists, there is no such thing as an unsigned writer. You can be a self-published, a co-published, or a published writer. Publishers only make money if songwriters make money. So, NMPA goes and fights for you. They go to Congress, they go and support the community, they fight DSPs to get you paid more. That's what they do. They fight for you, and they fight for this podcast. So thank you for fighting for songwriters, NMPA. Thank you for fighting for us, too. Okay, so I use Splice, and I'm pretty sure every producer who listens to this uses Splice, but if you don't, you need to start using Splice. They have the most incredible licensing library that you can go through for any kind of samples you can think of, but they take care of their original creators. In fact, they just came out with a beta version of their AI suite. Unlike its competitors that we know that may not take care of the original creators, every time you use Splice's AI tool, it triggers a licensing event for those original creators. So there's not a better company that I can think of right now that you can use where you can use the efficiency of AI and also know that you're taking care of the creators. And that is Splice.
Quick story, origin story. James I met through a mutual guy, and we kind of were going to do a goth band. That fell apart, and then James and I still worked together. I met Darcy. I got in an argument with her on the street.
Terrific.
Another true story.
How did that happen?
We saw a band. I didn't know she was there, but I got a ticket to see a band called the John Butcher Axis. It was a Wednesday night. It was probably August. So it was super hot. Came outside the venue. Was just standing there trying to cool off. And I heard this woman behind me saying how much she enjoyed the show. And I just thought the show was terrible. I don't know why. I feel bad because I don't like to denigrate artists. I just, at that moment, I just did not like the show, something about it. And so I just hear this woman going on about how great the show is. And I whirled around and I said, I can't possibly believe that you like the show. And our first meeting was an argument, which pretty much summed up our relationship. Yeah. Very interesting, right? So that's how we met. And then Jimmy, the Pumpkins were playing as a 3-piece with a drum machine. And a guy I'd worked with in my previous band, which was called The Marked, saw me playing as a 3-piece and said, do you want a drummer? And I said, oh yeah, I would love to have a drummer. He said, I know this guy. And Jimmy was literally playing in like a wedding party band, like a band you'd hire to play parties and stuff. And that's when I met Jimmy. And Jimmy knew zero about alternative music. He knew everything about Rush, Deep Purple. He knew all that stuff. He could play any of that stuff, which for me was like perfect because I spoke that language too. But if you said Bauhaus, you could, The Cure, he'd never heard any of those bands. So he's suddenly in an alternative band playing a style of music he has no knowledge for.
That's probably what makes it so. I mean, you have like a, almost like a jazz drummer playing in like, or it's not jazz, but he's so advanced.
Well, he's just incredible. Like it's like the best thing I could say about meeting Jimmy Chamberlain in '88. It was like, if I told you, hey, like, I know this guy, he plays in, the band was called JP and the Cats. They literally would play like weddings and street fairs, and they were literally like a party band. And I remember one time I saw Jimmy playing, and he was playing Green Eyed Lady, doop doop boo doo doop, if you know that song. And even in the first practice, I thought he was just a good drummer. He was playing these ticky tacky new wave beats, and then he did something, and I was like, and it's like that, that bad moment in the Netflix movie where the camera zooms out. I was like, I literally just found a savant, like a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
And by the way, the guy doesn't know he's a savant.
Even better.
He just knows he's the better drummer in the neighborhood. I recognized immediately, I found a world-class drummer hiding in plain sight, and nobody knows who this guy is. It's not like he was in the other cool alternative band and I stole him. I mean, instantly, this guy is the best drummer in Chicago that nobody's ever heard of. And I'm like, he's literally stumbled into my world.
But, to know that, if you grew up in the suburbs, how are you experiencing, I guess at that point, you're old enough where were you living in the city at that point?
Yeah.
Were you always a Cubs fan?
Yeah. No choice. My grandmother was an obsessive fan. In fact, I'll tell you a quick Cubs story if you want to hear it.
Yeah,
okay. So Randy Huntley, who's one of the most famous, was on the famous team that collapsed, the '69 Cubs. Randy Huntley, for my grandmother's generation, was the Cubs catcher. And that's back then when the guys would be with the team their whole careers, generally speaking. So my grandmother was the type, we would get to the game, wait for the gates to open at 10:30 in the morning, go and sit and wait for an hour, and then the teams would come out and have batting practice and field practice, then go back in for a while, and the game would start at 1:20. So we would be there from 10:30 until literally they would shove us out the gates, and then we would go wait by the cars to see the players come out in their street clothes and get into their cars just to wave at them. That was my grandmother. So we're at Wrigley Field, and there's nobody in the thing. They're literally, flipping up the seats and sweeping up the garbage. And she doesn't want to leave because for her, the ambience of Wrigley Field is like being in church. And she spots somebody, a grown man across the way, and she goes, oh my God, grabs my hand and drags me up to meet this gentleman. It's Randy Huntley. I didn't know because he was before my time. I was still a little kid. She's weeping copiously like she's meeting Jesus Christ because it's Randy Huntley. And he's like, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Hey, little kid. Okay, and then he bangs off. Fast forward 35 years later, I don't know. Hey, I'm in Arizona playing a gig. Hey, I'm friends with Randy Huntley. He's going to come down to the gig with me. You cool with Randy coming to the gig with me? And Randy's in my dressing room, and I'm talking with him. We're talking about the current Cubs at the time, and I go, I got to tell you the story. And I told him the story, and he goes, well, he starts to feel bad, like I don't remember. And I said, come on, I know you don't remember. It's like, I wouldn't remember. I said, but the way you treated my grandmother, I am forever in your debt. You are forever my hero because you don't know what that team meant to my grandmother. And the fact that you treated her with respect is something it's like, talk about a full circle moment as a Cubs fan. I mean, that's up there with me for when the Cubs win in the World Series because that honored my grandmother, and she's the one who gave me the love of the team, which is, if you love the team, If you really love the team, you ride or die. And I've been criticized for criticizing the celebrities that show up when the Cubs are winning and somehow don't show up when the Cubs are losing.
You were a good baseball player.
I was pretty good, yeah. Pitching was probably my best thing, but then I blew out my arm, yeah.
What's applicable with songwriting that you learned from being an athlete?
I used to have these conversations with the band because the band didn't always understand my attitude when we were in the heat of the moment of, I call it on the floor. On the floor for me is 4 band members in a room. We always practiced facing each other in a circle. So imagine our amps are actually feeding into the middle of the room. So it's all really loud and intense. We wouldn't line up like on stage 4 across. So like the bass amp is blasting in my face. James's guitar amp's blasting into my left ear. I mean, it was an intense situation. And I used to say, because they didn't like when I would get too kind of bare knuckle in that environment, I was like, this is like a game. Do you understand? That we're on the court. There's only so much time, and somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. Okay. So if I have a guitar idea, beat me. That's the world I grew up in sports. You get on the court. Like if you and I would be playing, say, pickup basketball, and we grew up in the same neighborhood. Well, one game you're on the other side, you're on the other team, and I'm going to kick your ass because that's what you do. And then at the end of the game, we shake hands and we go grab a Coke or whatever. And then the next game, me and you are on the same team. That's the way people bond in sports. You know what I mean? It's competitive, but it doesn't mean you're against each other. It means you're pushing each other to be better than you would be without the pressure of the situation. The band, by and large, did not like the pressure of the situation. And what I would say is, if you think I'm the pressure, go look outside the door. We're a band. Okay, so it's not 2026 story. This is 1988. We're from Chicago. We have no money. We're playing a style of music people in Chicago don't even like. There's no musical thing I can compare it to in the culture that sounds like we sound. So I can't even say, well, we sound like this band and they're doing well. We can't get booked anywhere. Okay? Darcy's sister worked at a club. We couldn't even get booked at the club Darcy's sister worked at because the booker hated us. Okay? I mean, we had no contacts in the music business. I knew one guy who was a promo guy from Mercury Records. That was my lone contact. In the entire, my father had no contacts in the music business. I knew one guy, and the only reason I knew him is because I babysit his kids. And his claim to fame was he was the guy who broke the Anita Baker record in 80 whatever. Okay, that's my entire contact to the music business. And I'm sitting somewhere in an unheated garage or an unheated warehouse trying to convince a band we will one day be one of the biggest bands in the world. Okay. So I would say to them, if you can't handle the pressure in here, what are we going to do when we get through this door?
I mean, the crazy thing is that
it is totally crazy.
Well, I mean, I grew up in a time where you had to be well rehearsed before you go and you record music. Like part of that rehearsal process is the creative engine that becomes the band. And I've never thought of approaching a rehearsal like we're playing against each other.
Oh yeah.
And that's a unique perspective. I can see where like that discord is what creates.
But here's the thing. We never, and to this day, nobody believes me, we never argued about music. We argued about everything else. Movies, food, travel. We just didn't argue about music. Somehow we did not argue. It's the strangest thing to me, even
That is
today.
crazy. Yeah.
Somehow these 3 knuckleheads agreed with this knucklehead about how to do it.
Yeah.
And when I would say, okay, we're done with that album, now we're going to go in a completely different direction, they go, okay. So that's the one thing I can always point to with my group is we somehow believed in something that was greater than ourselves, and that led us to, and ultimately we accepted the competitive atmosphere. They didn't like it, but it obviously was successful for us, or for me maybe, because I was the main writer.
It's also similar that a lead singer would be a pitcher or a lead singer would be a catcher.
That's what I love about pitching. I love that.
It's all in your, as they say, baseball is the only sport where
can we go back to the Cubs for a second?
Where the defense has the ball.
I see if you can remember this pitcher. I think his first name was Josh. He pitched for the Marlins. He was the ace of the Marlins during when the Cubs with the Bartman series, 2003.
Yeah.
So
not No,
I can't remember his
Price
name.
was third.
Right,
on
but
that
he was
list.
their
But
he was their
okay,
he was
got
their
it.
alpha pitcher.
Yeah.
This is thank you, Josh Beckett.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did some sort of barter with somebody in Chicago. I appeared at a club, and in exchange, they gave me 3 fourth-row tickets to the Marlin series in Florida, and I actually went with my dad. I took my dad and my brother.
Very cool.
So there's this moment that will forever stick out in my mind. This is Sosa, like roided out of his brains. Or, he's jacked.
Yeah.
And I once saw Sosa like with only a t-shirt on. I mean, he was jacked.
Yeah.
He was jacked like a pro wrestler.
Yeah.
You never saw it with the loose jersey that he wore. I saw what he was really like. He was jacked. Okay.
Yeah.
So this jacked Sammy roided Sosa versus Josh Beckett. This is the series that ultimately the Cubs lose because of the Bartman game.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm in Florida. The Cubs are on a roll. They're going to the World Series. There's all this momentum. 2003. Sammy Sosa come up, and this is like, I think Sosa hit 62 home runs that year.
Yeah.
Something like that. Beckett's the ace. Sosa comes up. Beckett throws one under Sammy's chin, and Sammy flexes like you going to throw that shit at me? I mean, I'm right there. I'm watching it. I watch all the body language. I see Beckett go, oh, yeah? Beckett throws 98, Sosa, swing and miss. 99, swing and miss. 100 miles an hour, swing and miss. And Beckett's like, fuck you, Sammy. Okay, that's what I love about baseball. That's what I mean about competitive thing. That's just, it's a game. But that's the point. Like, would Josh Beckett have gone 98, 99, 100, fuck you, Sammy, if it wasn't the situation? Pop, just call pop, whatever, music. It's fucking competitive. It's super competitive. Start here. 1988. I'm 21 years old. Okay. Again, I'm a nobody. I love my rock history. I'm fully aware of Elvis and the Beatles and the Everly Brothers. And I'm thinking, I don't even know how to write a song. How am I going to convince somebody, including my own father, that I have a future in this game? So what do? I get out, meet the Beatles, and I sit there and I listen. I go, why do they do what they do? Why does this song start with the vocal? Why does this song start with the guitar intro? And I start systemically breaking down everybody's system. I could bore you to tears breaking down the Beatles system, the Everly Brothers system. I broke it down, and then I applied it to my own gifts, and I said, okay, now I know how to do this. And slowly but surely, I started putting those pieces together. So by the time I'm standing on a floor with the band who's grumpy, who doesn't want to be there, I've already put in my 10,000 hours of songwriting. And I guarantee you they did not. But that's not my fucking problem. So if I have a riff, okay, what's the most famous thing of ever? James Hetfield, one of the greatest riff writers of all time. I mean, unbelievable guitar player, unbelievable singer, songwriter. I mean, James Hetfield is the man in my estimation. Who writes Enter Sandman? Kirk. Kirk writes do 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 do, and Lars picked it off like a jam tape that they had from a 4 a.m. jam session or something. Okay, my point was, James or Jimmy or Darcy, you might write Enter Sandman. Throw it in the middle of the room. They would try to accuse me that I wouldn't be willing to follow it even if they did it. I was like, are you crazy? If you write Enter Sandman, I'm going to jump on it. Are you kidding? I want to win more than I want to. I want to win. I want us to win. Because if we win, I win.
Yeah,
that's why I stuck with the band at the absolute peak of the band when the band started to fall apart. That's why I stuck with the band, because I believed in the band more than I believed in myself, much to my own personal detriment.
What do you mean to your personal detriment?
When Jimmy Chamberlain left the Pumpkins in 1996, okay, and I've said this in public before, so this is not some new revelation. That's the moment I should have jumped out of the band. Melancholy was one of the biggest records in the world. It went on to be a diamond record. It had 5 or 6 singles on it. I was boy wonder. I'd produced this record that even the record company didn't want, and it went on to make them $1 gazillion. And I got a band that's falling apart. Well, anybody with half a brain goes, see ya. It's going to all be about me now. I'm going to make all the money. I'm going to get all the chicks. It's all going to be about me. No, I stayed there because I believed in the band.
Do you think
And by the way, I'm still in the band.
Yeah. But there's...
Does that translate the way I mean it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah.
When you mention, and I don't know how splits worked for Metallica, and in this era, the guy who's in the room who's like,
Oh, I love that
who's
shit.
the vibe is like, I want 15% because I was there. And here you're writing 100% songs and producing them, but there's a lot of contribution that your band did. You know, being in a band sucks. And there are two ways that a band doesn't work. And it's also the two ways that they do work. One is it's a dictatorship, and the other one is that it's a democracy. Both don't work.
It was an autocracy.
There you go.
Was that your question? Sorry.
You and I are going to be friends. But no, I mean, was it hard for them to see the windfall of publishing?
Yes.
How did you deal with that?
Poorly.
How would you deal with it now?
Well, here's the, and if I'm not getting what you're after, please course correct.
I don't know what I'm getting after.
Okay.
I
feel like
throwing. Okay. I'm just throwing out Kirk Hammett riffs in the room and letting you pick it up.
Let me start here with a fun story because you live in this town and you know this vibe.
Uh-huh.
So for a while, I dated a pop star, Jessica Orglasso, who's in the band the Veronicas with her twin sister Lisa. Still very successful. Well, when we were dating, sometimes I would tag along to these writing sessions they would go on, and they wrote with Max Martin, and I mean they wrote with some top people, but it would be some LA people here, and there would be the guy in the room as they're working on this. By the way, I've written hit songs, and I got my mouth shut because it's not my session. I'm not trying to jump in on their game unless they ask me. There's a guy in the corner going, you know, like they're working on a rhyme, like, you know, the spoon and the moon rhymes with and he'd be like, June. And you're like, who the fuck is this guy? And then they'd be playing the tracks and he'd be like, yo, check it. And like freestyling over the song. And then later, you go, what happened with, he wants 5% of the song. Because we used one word, or I was like, what the fuck is this shit going on in this town? I mean, and it happens in Nashville.
The Nashville thing is change a word, get a third.
Yeah. So that don't fly with me. Okay. That shit don't fly with me. That ain't going to happen. But, okay, back to your question. There's stuff I don't want to get into because it's stuff for my book someday. But let's put it this way. There were times where people didn't like the way it was going down, which is that I was 100% writer. They would sort of imply certain things. So what that did is I stopped bringing ideas to the floor and I would work on everything at home. Okay. So for anybody who doubts me in this, okay, number one, and I don't mean this as a diss, these are just facts. Of all the Smashing Pumpkins hit songs, I'm the only writer. There's no co-writes. Okay. So nobody else in that group ever wrote not only any hit songs for the Pumpkins, any hit songs for anybody else. So that's what I'm saying is people can get grumpy about that. But at the end of the day, if you don't show game outside of that situation, I think that sort of proves that my instincts about it was about me was correct. It's simple, period. So now I just straight up about it because it is what it is. I mean, I'm not going to feel bad because I'm the guy writing the songs. And remember, I'm 40,000 hours into songwriting at this point.
I mean, I agree with you 100%. As far as like, I'm.
Put it this way, we ain't running a charity up in here. This is a bare knuckle business, highly competitive, and despite everything that goes on in the world of songwriting is still a capitalistic business. You got it. Don't care where you come from. We're going to run with it because it's going to make people some money. The publishing, the whole business is still predicated on who writes them songs. That's it. That's it. Now, you want to be one of those stars with like 27 writers, you do what you got to do. Like people are asking me about Suno and all this stuff. I got a Suno in my brain. I don't need Suno to write my songs.
But it's not just Suno, and I think there's some applicable parts to AI. Shout out to Splice who has an ethical AI platform where they actually license shit. But regardless of that, I think that the parts of AI that are interesting for a songwriter is that you can take some of the songs that you wrote in 1988 that never got heard that were actually hits, and you don't have the time to go reproduce them. You can run them through to hear if it fucking sucks or not.
Yeah.
So there's like there's some avenues in it that it's not a matter of whether you can or not. And I'm not talking about what you end up releasing in the world. I'm just saying as a tool, it can be very valuable just in hearing whether or not it has value.
Let me say, you didn't ask me, but I'm going to make a declaratory statement.
Mm-hmm.
I patently refuse to use AI in my music creation.
Great.
Because to me, it's a deal with the devil. Simple. And if you want me to elaborate on that, Will, if you want to move on, please.
Yeah, elaborate on it. Why not? We're on a podcast.
You know, whether it's the Promethean fire myth or whatever, to me, it is you're literally leaning into the thing that will destroy you. Period. So that's why I'm not going to mess with it. Because the pressure, the inspiration, the soul searching, I'm not sure I got anything else to say. That's all part of the journey that a songwriter needs to go to. Okay. Now, if it was the guy in my band or somebody I met through my friend Shooter Jennings or whatever, and we're writing songs together, that's a real person with real feelings and real blood coursing through their veins. And maybe someday we're going to argue about a publishing split. Okay. But if we're arguing, it means there's something of value that we're arguing over. If my new running buddy is pick your app or app to still be made, okay, that shit's never going to end. I'm saying it's good that a songwriter has a doubt. It's good that a songwriter is not sure they have anything left to say. It's good that a songwriter has to think of a new chord that they haven't thought of. That's where the magic comes from. And until that is proven otherwise, I'm sticking with the game I'm in.
We even started this by saying that
can I say
the next step is going to be analog, where people want.
Okay,
they're coming.
Okay, we're having the same thought at the same moment. Maybe people will listen to me and continue to listen to me into my old age because they know it's coming from me. That actually might be part of the sale. You understand?
100% that's part of the sale. And that's what I'm saying. As a tool, it can be really valuable if you want to use it, and if you don't want to use it, don't use it. But going back to
but I'm not trying to cut you off, but I'm saying I'm making a bigger argument. Do you understand? You're flirting.
Yeah.
Okay. We're flirting with the thing that will destroy us as a economy, as a business, as a movement. We're asking to be eradicated. We're giving them our information. We're letting them. They already have all our other information. God knows what the labels are doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Am I going to get a check someday for 62 cents because? You know what I mean? Like, is that coming?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, right. But I'm saying is, on a spiritual level, to lean into it is to ask to be wiped out. You're asking to be wiped out.
Do you think, and this is just playing devil's advocate, speaking of Prometheus, but if you're looking at 1927, going back to the, Shellac Records, even before that, Tin Pan Alley, the publishing industry had an opportunity to invest in the record business and the original pressings and could have owned the record business.
For nothing.
For nothing. But they said, nah, we're going to stick with pianos. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Then radio comes in and they say, well, you could invest in this thing. That's magic. Nobody's going to listen to that. And everyone would have to buy one and put it in their house. I'm sticking with pianos.
Yeah.
Pianos sued songwriters. Songwriters are stuck in this like forever cycle. Go even further to Napster and all this. Fuck that. We're going to stick with what we know. We're going to stick with CDs. CDs are the answer. And we're going to we'll sue the individual users and all that.
Are you making a point about whether or not I'm a Luddite or
maybe? I'm just wondering, is it inappropriate for for the music industry to invest and be partners with the AI platforms rather than completely shut it out?
I'm a pragmatic person. It's going to happen. It doesn't matter what I think.
Fair.
Right. So what really matters is are the songwriters, the organic songwriters, the 100%ers or people who are able to collaborate, are they going to be able to innovate to keep pace with the demon on the other side of the room? That's going to be the real story. Because if I was 15 years old today, would I have my little Tascam 4-track be trying to figure out what minor chord Robert Smith is playing versus, hey, I can just feed it in this machine. It's going to tell me what to play. And by the way, when I do that, my father, who doesn't think I have a musical future, is now going to believe that I have a musical future because this machine told me what 4 chords to play.
Oh, totally.
I think the real fallow winter that's coming is you're going to lose generations of songwriters. And what you're really going to end up is with okay, so over the last 20 years, we've seen the rise of the producer, the star producer, where the producer is almost more important. Particularly like Max Martin, the producer-writer is more important than the artist, at least how the business animates itself. Right? I mean, you generally agree with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're going to see the rise of the guy who knows how to run the programs better than the other guy or girl.
Yeah. I think
It'd be like Dr. Joe.
Yeah.
Dr. Joe is the king of something, 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 and he'll be branded, and he'll have a sponsorship, and he'll be doing commercials, and you can be just like me. Look, I got a Benz in the driveway, and I'm da-da-da-da-da, because I'm just really good at like knowing how to put this information together.
Yeah.
I don't even know fucking music. I just know what I like.
Well,
bro.
some of that's the you're born with taste. Without getting, we could go on the AI train for a while. But
listen, there's historical antecedents, and you were right to point it out. Every generation kind of does its, oh my God, okay? But let's face it, this shit's gonna wipe out a lot of people.
It's gonna wipe out a lot of people. It already has. I mean, like, there's no reason any demo singer is done.
This might be the most cataclysmic technological innovation in this town since the change from silence to talking pictures. A lot of people going to lose their gig, and you're suddenly just going to be a lot of new faces who are suddenly like boy or girl wonder because they know how to press some freaking buttons.
You brought up the right moment, that when talkies began and you went from silent movies to movies with sound, 1/3 of all instrumentalists in the United States lost their job, because every single major city had a movie theater that had an orchestra that would play throughout the show, the movie. And what people don't recognize is that by adding sound to that, 1/3 of all instrumentalists in the United States lost their job pretty much overnight, within about 5 years. Similarly, all the actors who were immigrants, which most of the people were who were in silent movies, couldn't transfer because once they had to speak, it totally changed the facade of what...
This whole town held their breath when Garbo finally spoke on camera because they didn't know whether her allure was going to translate to a new audience.
Yeah.
And she went on to become a bigger movie star because they loved the accent.
Yeah.
In other people's cases, it was a career killer.
Yeah. And this is where we're at. There's no question that there are a lot of instrumentalists right now that will lose their jobs, and producers. And to be honest, a lot of those people who are that 5% that were in the room that said, well, why not rhyme with June? That person is going to get hard.
Check it.
Yo, check it. June. 1/3. Let's go back to, so how do you meet Butch Vig?
Good question.
He was in... this is before Garbage and after Urge Overkill. How do you meet Butch?
Quick version of the story was we were trying desperately to get signed, and at that moment, Sub Pop was the indie label that was hot. Somehow we contacted them, and they said, if you drive to Seattle, we'll give you 3 gigs opening for Tad and the Afghan Wigs, Seattle, Portland, and Chico, California. So we got in a van with ball tires, drove 40 hours west, crashed on a nice lady's floor who let us crash because we had no money, played for Sub Pop. They thought so little of us. They said, maybe they felt bad for us. They gave us a 7-inch single. Like, they had a single of the month club. They didn't offer us a record deal. There's another story where later they did, but we'll skip that for today. But they offered us the 7-inch single and whatever the budget was, $3,000 or whatever to make the single. So we went back to Chicago. We'd released one single with a local guy whose name was Mike Potential. He said, there's this producer up in Madison, Wisconsin named Butch Vig. Never heard of him. And so I went to the record store and I tried to find any record that Butch Vig had been involved with. He was involved with some pop bands that had been Firetown and Spooner, but it was more like jangly Midwestern pop. Certainly wasn't the Pumpkins sound in 1990. And I found a record he'd done by a band called Das Damen, who was kind of a very early kind of heavy guitar band, cool band. And I remember listening to the production. I didn't like the guitar sound, but I thought it's got a good kick drum sound. So we hired Butch because he had a good kick drum sound, because almost every indie record had a shitty kick drum sound. And because drums were so essential to our band, that's how we met. So the first day we met Butch was outside of Smart Studios, loading in the equipment. And we did Tristessa and La Dolly Vita, our first kind of real single for Sub Pop, with Butch and I producing the record in, I think, a day and a half, and back out the door he went. And I remember at that session him saying that he just recently done some demos with Nirvana. So this is all this nascent period where we're unknown, he's unknown. He'd done some music with Nirvana because Kurt liked what he'd done, or something, and that's where this whole craziness starts.
Where did you learn to produce? Why is it produced by you and Butch?
Well, that's a good question. We worked in '89. We had this rule in the band where we didn't spend any of the money that we made at gigs, so we set it all aside in kind of like a kiddie fund for a rainy day. And eventually we got to the point where nobody would sign us, so I decided to make our own record, our own album. And a guy had a basement studio near where I worked at a record store, and I would go in there for, I don't know, $10, $20 an hour. And the band got very bored very quickly and just banged off. So I produced 19 songs, a bunch of acoustic stuff, electric, kind of like the early version of where the band was going to go. And those songs ended up being the songs that ended up getting assigned down the road. But the real story, and to the heart of your question, was the man's name is Mark Anafo, great guy. But one day I'm sitting at the board and something's playing, and I go to touch the board because I want to turn my guitar up, and he goes, no, you don't touch the board. I'm the producer. You don't touch the board. And I thought, well, fuck you. And that's when I was like, I'm going to produce my own records, because I can't. How can I write this song, organize this motley crew, who half the time can barely play, and then spend money to record and then not have it sound the way I need it to sound? That was just, to me, was, as a songwriter, I just could not wrap my head around that. Or I got to beg some guy to turn my guitar up. You know what I mean? I was like, that's not going to happen.
It seems like the best way to manipulate you is to tell you can't do something.
Pretty true, yeah. Pretty true.
Gish comes out like right before, Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
It sort of is this thing where I think you look at Gish differently after, like, because it's like, oh yeah, this is it opened the door where all this music that was sitting there, even like
Sure.
their earlier stuff, Bleach and whatever,
Yeah.
like everything just starts to sound different when you're like, oh no, this is commercial music.
Yeah.
But when you released Gish, what were your expectations at that point?
We just wanted to get to the next record. I mean, we were signed to Virgin, but they put us on Carolina's subsidiary. I think the budget was $20,000. So for a full record, I mean, not 1990 money, but still, there wasn't a ton of time. And Butch was very reasonable about charging us. I think we got Butch and the studio for $500 a day. I think that was the deal.
So crazy.
And I think we made the whole record in 46 days, went over budget. And we put it out, and right away it started selling. It went on to sell 450,000 copies on an independent, and at the time was the biggest selling independent album of all time.
So crazy.
So we obviously were catching a wave. I'd like to take all the credit, but something about what we had figured out in Chicago was linking up with what people were figuring out in other places. Something about the guitar. And
why you guys are such an outlier? Everyone's talking about the scenes out of Seattle, and then here Gish comes out before, Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Yeah.
Why is it that no one else could figure out that this, like, what was in your head that you think gave you this prophecy?
Well, I mean, I used to go see a lot of shows, but I think the way I would take the question slightly differently, I didn't think what I was hearing in the clubs was being properly represented on the record. So, for example, if people want to go check out Gish, our first album, super dry drums, super dry vocals, no reverb or anything on the guitars. So the guitars are like jacked, loud, clear, articulated. I've got an insane drummer who plays his brains out. And between the two of us, we crafted this hyper aggressive but sensual thing, but that could compete with a rock thing, but it didn't feel like Sunset Strip rock.
Yeah.
And somehow that record seemed to be the first record to capture the zeitgeist, the sound of what was happening. Let's call it the soundtrack sound of what was happening. The feeling in the club was on the record, and we went for that. The takes are all live. There's no editing. I mean, it is jacked.
It feels like that.
Yeah. And as I famously said, Butch leaves that record to go do Nevermind. And so I've said this story before. The simple version is we're sitting 4th of July with Butch. He's just come back from LA. He's just finished the record. Butch had initially mixed the record, and then the record company rejected Butch's mix and used Andy Wallace. And Kurt picked Andy Wallace because he'd mixed Slayer. I mean, that's the true story. So we heard the first mixes outside of the studio sitting at a lake with Butch on 4th of July. We just happened to be in Madison with Butch, and he presses the cassette, and the first thing I hear is the opening sound of Teen Spirit. And the first thought I had was, oh, interesting. He's ripped off More Than a Feeling by Boston. And then the second thought I had was, oh my God, you stole my guitar sound. Because I had taught Butch my very specific way of how I wanted the guitars to sound and be represented.
Did you find yourself competitive with Kurt?
Oh, yeah. Because he was the best. He was the best. I always go back to this quote. I remember when Charles Barkley was playing and Michael Jordan was the player. And they said to him in an interview, do you think Michael Jordan is better than you? And he goes, if I thought Michael Jordan was better than me, I wouldn't play. I play because I think I'm as good or better than. So Kurt was like this North Star. You were like, oh my God, the talent that guy had was staggering. I mean, it was staggering to watch up close. He just had this gift that was like, I don't know how he did it. He made it look easy. I know he worked. I'm not saying he didn't work, but I'm saying he made it look easy. So it was even more intimidating. And oh, by the way, everybody wanted to be Kurt. Notice how all of a sudden everybody started dressing like Kurt, playing like Kurt, interviewing like Kurt. I don't want to be like Kurt. I want to be like me. So the room's all running in a different direction from what I'm putting out. I'm wearing paisley shirts. You know what I mean? So now I really got to figure out not only how to best this guy, I got to do it my own way because I'm not going to imitate him. There's no fucking way I'm going to do that. If I'm going to win, I'm going to win my own way. So it pushed me way farther than I would have gone. So God bless him. I mean, that's back to the competitive. I love it. It's great.
Yeah. I mean,
how awesome is it? How awesome is that I was squared up? Let's go back to sports, okay? We're on the basketball court, okay? He's smaller than me. He's got a better voice than me. The guy writes hooks for days. The guy wrote hooks like he was eating breakfast. I mean, and you're staring across the room and you go, I got to dunk on this motherfucker. You know what I mean? It's like, let's go, man. Let's go. That's how I felt. I didn't personalize it. I didn't idolize him and I didn't hate him. I sort of revered. I understood how important he was. I got it. I understood because I knew my 60s. I was like, okay, he's this guy. But, you know, just because there was Jimi Hendrix doesn't mean there wasn't Eric Clapton. That's the whole point. When you lose that, you lose something that you can't estimate what that's about. People get lost in the sauce on that. If you think about it, it's respect. I respect your game. Like, fuck, man. God damn, how do you do that? And by the way, we're working with the same guy. So I'm hearing all the stories. It's not like he's behind a mysterious cloud. And oh, by the way, he's married to my ex-girlfriend who still calls me and we talk. So I know everything that's going on. I know his management. I mean, I know the mythology and I know the human behind the scenes. And we would even talk on the phone sometimes. It's like, it's again, it goes to the basketball thing. It's like when we're on the court, I want to beat you because you're the best. Otherwise, what am I doing here?
This era is really interesting because it was I was trying to, I shared the single soundtrack recently where, you know, Drown is on there. And I don't remember what singles were from it because they were all
There's a story
singles.
there. Oh, there's a story.
I want to hear it. And what's interesting is like it's the NBA All-Star of 1992 is the Olympics dream team, and for me, my Olympics dream team is the single soundtrack.
Right.
You know, and here are these like incredible songs, but again, this is the Seattle grunge scene and Smashing Pumpkins.
Okay. The backstory is it was Chris Cornell's doing that got us on the soundtrack. He's the one who recommended us for Cameron Crowe to put us on the soundtrack. It was actually Chris who called and said, would you be open to this? I think he called with Cameron. He said, do you have any songs? Because Gish was out. And I'd already written Drown for what was supposed to be Siamese Dream. So I was like, but it was really the only good song I had laying around. It's like, okay. And Chris got us some money for that. Forever grateful for that. And then when the soundtrack came out, got to remember, in 1991-ish, 2-ish, there were only about 7 to 13 alternative radio stations in America. So getting played on those stations wasn't like, it didn't mean anything in the sense that suddenly you're going to have, there was K-Rock, but I mean, it wasn't like you're going to sell 1 million records. It was none of that. You needed this magical thing of MTV and stuff. Well, I can't remember what label the record, I think it was Sony, but Alice in Chains had Wood, and radio started playing Drown, our song, and Alice in Chains Wood, both great songs, and both were getting traction. And I think it was maybe Columbia. Columbia killed our single because we weren't on their label. So Drown got killed as a single by the record label putting out the record. They actually called the radio stations and said stop playing it.
It's crazy. There's your politics.
Don't you love the music business?
You know that album sells 2 million copies and is or more, and it's so good. If you don't know what it's like to live in the 90s and grow up, listen to the single soundtrack, and that's it. So many of those front men have died. That are part of that.
Am I dead and I'm in your particular digital heaven?
This is how I'm telling you. Surprise, surprise.
Well, it's been a good run.
It was a good run. You've been dead for a long time, man. No, so like what? But all these people,
I died after Gish, and this is just all right.
None of it happened. You wrote it for Siamese Dream. That never came out. This thing just took a real wild turn. It's been 2 hours, so there you go. When the 27 club that was before the grunge era was already established, it's alive and running now. But being part of a scene where some of these people didn't get to age well, or some of them aged and didn't want to be older, whatever the reason is. Did you ever fear for your own health?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For me, the most haunting time was pre-Siamese, precisely because of what we're talking about. Gish comes out, huge success. We do the Chili Pepper Pearl Jam tour, huge tour. I mean, Rolling Stone, I think one time came out and said it was one of the 10 best tours of all time. We only got one paragraph, though. Everyone else got more paragraphs. So you see how these things work. Anyway, then Nevermind comes out and blows. I mean, it blows up. I mean, it is game on now. And then Pearl Jam blows up, and then Alice in Chains starts, like it is on MTV. It is on. Okay, well now we're on a major label, which was Virgin. Major label budget $250,000. We ended up spending $350. They weren't happy about that. And we went down to Marietta, Georgia, and made Siamese. But in the 8 months lead up to that, I'm on tour. I'm on drugs. I'm insecure. I don't know how to write pop songs. I just spent the last 5 years of my life learning how to write psychedelic super jams like Shiva and cool 7-minute songs like Drown. I mean, that's where my brain was. And now I got to figure out how to write a 3-minute pop song to be on what? K-Rock? What's K-Rock? Who's Kevin Weatherly? You know what I mean? It was like, huh? What? So back come out the Beatles records, and I go, okay, now I got to figure this out. And then I was like, I can't do this. I was like, that for me was the moment of like staring down the camera lens. I was like, I'm not sure I could do this. I'm not sure I have the, and by the way, my voice has always been a part of, my story. Love it, hate it, nails on a chalkboard. It's like, again, and was just talking about somebody like Kurt. Kurt, great voice. Eddie, great voice. I mean, these guys had great voices. I have a unique voice. Some people love it, some people don't. But I'm saying it's not. I don't lack self-awareness. Obviously, you know what I mean. Like being on the radio is different than making a record that people want to listen to. I grew up listening to bands that didn't give a shit about being on the radio per se. The Cure, Joy Division, Susie and the Banshees, Gene Loves Jezebel. There's a lot of cool bands that sang cool. I totally fit within that ethos. Now it's something different. And oh, by the way, here come all the second wave generation bands, the Nirvana clones and the Pearl Jam clones. I mean, it was like the zone flooded with a lot of, and by the way, think about this just because we're talking songwriters. Okay, Kurt maps out a blueprint. Hey, basically amplify. Kurt said he's writing Pixies songs. He said it, so no mystery. If you take the Pixies formula Charles did, amplify it this way, this way, this way, this way, anti-solo in the middle, blah, 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 blah. There's your formula. Everybody floods the zone. And there's me in the corner going, well, I can't write those because if I do, I'm dead. There goes the brand, there goes the dream, it doesn't matter that it's my guitar sound. You know what I mean? Like no one's going to give a shit. So I had to figure out something that was totally different. That's when I started writing songs like Today and Disarm and Cherub Rock. And I went all the way in, like heavy in on the whole deal.
I mean, it's so, it's strange to hear from your perspective how you hear your voice. I remember, I'm like a theater kid and jazz kid, and what I was raised to think a good singer was the kind of, what you'd assume a good singer is, someone maybe with vibrato. And when it was perfect time. I was 10, 11 years old. These albums are coming out. And I remember just being obsessed with them and just listening. My mom and my sister were like, they're like, this isn't real singing. I remember Barbra Streisand had something on like HBO, and they made me watch it, being like, this is real singing. And I'm like, but I really like this other kind of singing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you do really well, you could sing in many ways, but you choose to, chew vowels a certain way. You choose to double your vocals in a certain way.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it that way.
That's the producer, you see.
But you do it, and that's what makes your voice great.
Oh, thank you.
Is that it is totally unique.
Okay, but let me stop you.
So necessary.
The artist in me is completely insecure, and the producer's like, you're going to do it this way. Not Butch Vig, the producer, me, the producer.
Yeah.
You, over here, imperfect person, you're going to do it this way. This is the only way it's going to work. So I'll give you a flash. Marietta, Georgia. Disarm, which went on to be a big MTV song. Acoustic, strings, vocals. That's it. Okay? I go in, I cut the vocal, do like 8 takes, come in, I comp the vocal. Not Butch, I comp the vocal because I'm so paranoid. I comp the vocal, we listen back to it, and Butch goes, that's pretty good. I go, not good enough. And I went back and sang it again. That was me doing that insanity. I mean, it's like,
When you were scared.
Oh, yeah. So on one hand, I'm beating up the singer in me. Like, I did an album out here once, Adore, 97, 98. I got to the point where I was so embarrassed with my lack of technical capability, because at that point I started writing more sophisticated melodic things. And I would kick everybody out of the studio, and I'd run the tape machine myself and just sit at the board and sing like some weirdo, in his lonely spaceship singing songs. And when I couldn't hit the runs that I'd written, the writer in me is now mad at the singer in me because I can't sing what I've written. I would punch myself in the thigh, and I would go home and there would be bruises all up and down my, like deep bruises, because I was so frustrated with my lack of technical capability. And then I was mad at my parents for refusing to give me a musical education. I mean, I went through all of it. So that's...
Did you ever get therapy?
Oh, yeah. 13 years. That didn't work, but I'm still here.
You were saying how going into Siamese, dream was the lowest part, but after the success of Today, Disarm, it's just massive. Did you recreate the same sort of fear, or at that point were you like,
No.
I'm now like,
No,
well,
I didn't.
I'm now on the list.
I played it in public a certain way, but in private I was like the
Relieved.
thing. Well, the thing that irritated me the most was we had this breakthrough record. It's considered a classic now, so I'm not speaking out of turn. And we just didn't get our flowers, to use the young kids' phrase. It just didn't click. We weren't getting the great reviews. We were getting, I mean, Rolling Stone 3 stars. They called it derivative. I mean, listen to Siamese Dream now. Call it a derivative of what? I mean, yeah, I try to make my guitar sound like Boston, but the record doesn't sound like Boston.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like derivative of what? There's no record before or since that sounds like Siamese Dream. I mean, is a one.
Oh, I think there are a lot of people who tried to copy.
Sure,
Siamese.
but even
yes,
even I only made one of those,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
it is a one. It is a one. It's a once in a lifetime type of record. Okay, and then it wasn't magical. It didn't turn into the magical thing that I saw happen for the other bands of our generation. So then I got mad, and I thought, okay, now I'm going to do a double album, and I'm going to scorch earth all the way around us, and nobody will follow us. And that turned out to be true. And in that I am boasting, because then I went to ground. Because I knew what I had, I knew what I was capable of. I had enough confidence in myself to go to ground, and we went there. And now I'm literally performing the damn thing as an opera. So whatever that was, it was important for me to do there. But the irritation was being called a grunge band. It's like, to call the Pumpkins a grunge band is like, it's like a slur. It's like, what, a grunge band?
It was orchestration. I mean, you listen. I had so much fun the last couple of days, just
the insanity,
going through again, because it's a different thing. You listen to songs from before you're a professional musician, songwriter. Like it's so magical. To me, it's magical.
Mm-hmm.
I know how songs are written. I've written some big songs. I love my job. I love the business. I love studying it. All of that stuff. Similarly. But to listen through your discography the last couple days, and by the way, I don't always do that.
Okay, well, thank you.
I did it because it's like, to me, it's a warm hug.
Okay.
It's all the teen. I'm just there, man.
Mm-hmm.
You like bring me to the years where I'm starting to play guitar when I'm in 1993, 94.
Yeah, I get it.
I played a bunch of instruments before, and you're like, I wouldn't dare to be like, I never felt competitive with anybody who was on the radio at the time, except for I was like, oh, I think I can maybe write like, it's probably about 97 where I was like, I can write some of these songs.
Yeah,
I'm gonna, like,
that's the whole
come
point.
out to LA and
but that's the beauty of alternative culture. It's supposed to be inviting. It's not supposed to be, you can't get here. I'm surrounded by my 20 assistants. It's supposed to be, we're you and you're us. That's why when the troops rally around alternative music, it's so powerful, because it is true identity politic.
Yeah.
It's between the tribe, right? The other thing is like, that's why the AI thing's going to turn into a total shit show, because it's going to become more about that.
We're going to do a little bit of rapid fire.
All right.
I'm just going to list some songs and some albums.
What if I just give the answers first and then we ask the questions to see if the answers?
I kind of like that.
Yes, no, maybe, 3. Okay, go.
3, Atom. Is that how you pronounce it? I always thought it was Adam. Atom. So, I'm such an idiot. Okay, so let's go with the video for today.
What do you want to know?
I don't know. I'm just gonna.
Just whatever.
Tell me about the video for today.
I had the idea about doing it as an ice cream truck. They foisted on us that we had to use this arty director, and he made us do this other art concept, which is why there's people making out in the field, and it has nothing to do with the ice cream truck guy.
So great. Let's talk about the opening riff of "Trust Me."
Trust me.
The Courtney Love. What is that? What was that? Oh, Celebrity Skin.
Oh yeah, I was like, huh.
Tell me about the opening riff for Celebrity Skin.
Courtney said she wanted to do a glam song, and I said like this, da 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 boom. We were talking about T-Rex, and that's just literally. I literally went da 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 da, and she goes, "Take me over," or we both did it in a moment. Literally, boom. We wrote the song in like 20, 30 minutes. Lyrics, everything, boom, go. Because she said I wanted this kind of glam thing. She'd been listening to T-Rex or something, but I knew it couldn't do like 12-bar blue T-Rex. So I had to give her something that made her feel like what she wanted. And I went da-da, da-da, da-da. It just came out of me. And boom, we went right in.
Were you guys dating at the time?
No. We had romantic relationships at different periods, early 90s and then 94, somewhere around there.
I know you have your podcast where you have your episode with her that just came out today.
Yes.
Is it fun to reminisce with friends?
We have so much history. That's a maze. That's a maze.
Tell me about your podcast.
Magnificent Others. My attempt is to reframe how people are viewed in the culture. And so I interview people that maybe might seem unusual to be interviewed at depth. And then after people watch the interviews, they tend to say, okay, now I really understand what you were after. So it might be somebody like recently I interviewed Erin Murphy, who was Tabitha on Bewitched, who was on the show from age, I think, 11 months to she was about eight years old, somewhere around there. And her life has been defined by the fact that when she was a kid, she was on this famous TV show. So in typical celebrity culture, your value is, well, you were on that TV show. You have no other value to the world. So to me, it's just as valuable for her to talk about her life as an adult, like what she's done with herself, what she's made of her life. She's a total positive person who's gone on to help others. She's not just somebody sitting there reminiscing about what happened once upon a time. I don't like the way American culture frames up celebrity. That's the general sort of spiritual basis of the show, but it's much wider than that.
Are there other cultures that do it better?
In the world?
Yeah.
I would argue that European culture at least celebrates artists getting older, yeah, which is why Leonard Cohen was headlining arenas in his 70s. The chance of that happening here without somebody playing their heavy, big hit back catalog is virtually nil. But Leonard Cohen never had hits, so how is he headlining arenas in his 70s? Because he's a one-of-a-kind artist who's on parallel with Dylan as far as a folk troubadour. I mean, that's even Dylan basically recognizes that. But in American culture, it's like, Leonard Cohen, what hit did he have? You know, Sisters of Mercy covered one of his songs. I mean, that's the problem with American culture. It's not only what have you done for me lately. It's like, what have you done for me in 5 minutes? It's like, that's where what's beautiful about American culture is its rapacious consumerism. So when we get it right, we really get it right, but mostly we get it wrong.
1979
was a good year.
That's so great.
It was like this, Frank Sinatra. It was a very good year.
Let's go with Zombie.
Youngblood called me and said I had got this crazy idea. It's basically a pumpkin song. I didn't produce it like a pumpkin song because I didn't want to get accused of ripping you off. So I want to scratch the itch. That's his quote. And let you do with it what I should have had you do with it in the first place. And I said, "Are you sure?" Because I'm going to do that big wall of guitar and all that stuff. And so I got 90% there.
Are you a good dad?
I think the jury's out on that. I like to think I'm a good dad, but I don't think you can really know until your kids grow up. I think the natural thing of a parent is to rationalize their behavior and their decisions, but you don't really know if you're giving your kids what they really truly need. And I think that's the haunting part about being a parent. You can only guess. And I have 3 kids and they're completely different. I mean, they are completely different. So like songwriting, it's like, you would write different with different writers, right? It's like with kids, it's like, wow, this is psychedelic, what these kids need,
What would you tell your mom right now?
Whew. Well, I can tell you what I told her before she passed, which is it's okay. My mom went into a mental institution when I was 4, never lived with her again, but she got to see my success. And so that was kind of what I said. It's like, it turned out okay. It wasn't perfect, but it was okay.
It's weird because if you're looking at your kids and saying that we'll see how they turn out, You seem to turn out really well. But, it seems like you had a complicated relationship with both your parents. Did your parents raise you well?
No, poorly.
And then how did you turn out so great?
I'm a willful motherfucker.
What would you say to your dad right now?
I don't know. I'm still working on it. My dad passed about 3.5 years ago. I'm still working on that. I love my father. I mean, I would not have played music if it wasn't for my father. I think that was the thing that struck me after he died was like, I'm not sure I would have been a musician. I think I took up music to get his attention. I just happened to be good at it, but I didn't take up music because I had this love to be a musician. I loved music, but I didn't necessarily want to be on stage. I don't know. So it's complicated. I need to hit that thing. Zzz.
Are you happy?
Happier. I'm on a what do you call it? A quest. I'm on a quest. I got asked in an interview recently. It was a deep dive interview because when I launched my podcast, it was sort of a review of my life, more as a public person and then just as a musician. And the woman asked a fantastic question, which was something along the lines of like, what are you still after? What drives you at this point? And I said, what drives me at this point is my true place in the culture has not yet been established. I know what I've done. I could sit here and tell you off camera exactly where I land, how I'll be remembered after I'm gone. But if I sat on camera, I do get a ton of fucking hate because I'm not viewed in the culture commensurate to my contribution. And that's generational politics more than anything, and also clickbait culture. I'm good for clicks. I mean, let's face it. But at the end of the day, that's not why I'm here.
I was talking some of my friends who worked on maybe the biggest musical of the last 30 years, and
is that Hamilton?
Yeah, and similar thing. It was I know what my obituary is gonna say. And so, like, moving on to the next project and doing other stuff, but it's like it's a hard thing you can't erase Melancholy and Siamese Dream, and not that you're trying to, but what it does is it's like it's this understanding that's like there are, like you were saying, there are no albums after that compete. You can't compete; those are at the top. Then there are others. Mm-hmm. They're different, but like here's a guy who studied Sergeant Pepper's, and then you have Melancholy. Like, I don't know that in a long list, like which one's ahead of which. Yeah. It's like those things are what artists need in order to create what may end up being your biggest contribution, which is shining a light on other artists on a podcast. Maybe sure. It's all the other stuff that
But producing. Can I take your point in a slightly different direction?
Please.
It's my current sort of obsessive rant, which is we are starting to see the waning of the baby boomer shadow. We as artists have only lived in baby boomer culture. Gen X never surpassed. And the subsequent cultures, whatever, Gen Y, whatever, they have not surpassed. Boomers are still the predominant influence in American culture, still. Right? Yeah. Would you agree with that? 100%. Okay. You are now seeing, for the first time in our lives, the waning of that culture. So everything you just said is boomer value.
Interesting.
So let me give you a quick sketch using me as the example since you brought me up. In boomer culture, my value is my most successful albums in reverse order, and whether or not I achieved anything else outside of that. Like, hosted the, said start your engines at the 2001 Indy 500, right? It's like celeb shit.
Sure.
Okay, that's boomer. Okay, I could tell you right now, without giving away any secret, my real value has nothing to do with that. That's it. And time will prove me right on that. I'm not saying that is not part of my story. I'm saying it's only a piece of a much greater value.
I agree, obviously, with what you're saying. I think I don't really believe in legacy anyway. I'm going to be dead. No one's going to remember.
Okay, I like the word used in the intro, which is influence, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's use Lou Reed, one of my favorite writers, and somebody I knew a little bit personally. Okay. What's more important, the songs Lou Reed wrote, or no, let's use the boomer value, the hits Lou Reed wrote, or Lou Reed's influence? What's more important?
Yeah, undoubtedly the influence.
It's not even close. I mean, it's ridiculous. So Lou Reed as an artist needs to be reassessed for his real value, not his boomer value.
Oh, I agree. I mean, in your story, not mine, but there's no question that the advocacy that I've done for songwriters is far more influential than anything I'm known for.
So
Like
why
what I've
can't
done
your
for as far as like my value to the business?
Okay, so why can't your story be all of the above?
It is all
No,
the
no, no.
above.
What I'm saying is, you work in this town,
Yeah.
and you go into a meeting, right?
Yeah.
And your value is assessed 8 times out of 10 on your boomer value.
Mm.
You know, it's like a Tekken. You know, you got you know, fast 6 out of 10. You know, attack, whatever. You know what I mean? It's like a video game. You get your character value, Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yeah.
You know, very persuasive.
We should each have like a little ticker here, like where.
So we've only I'm not trying to put this on you. I'm saying, and if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. We have grown up accepting the values that we were given by our parents and their parents that said this is the way it works in the world, and particularly in Chicago, working class.
Yeah.
You work, and then maybe you get 10 years sitting by a Wisconsin lake, and then you fucking die.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, your kids love you, and you don't end up in a nursing home. That's the world that we grew up in.
Yeah.
We are part of changing the value system to an actually accurate value. And the beauty of social media, as haunting as it can be, is it's going to help reassess true value. So my podcast, for example, and there's a plug, which is I actually take people and in conversation with them, demonstrate to the audience, here's the real value of this person. It's not what you think. It's not what you've been told.
I love that.
So for example, Erin Murphy, right? Bewitched. I tried to do some research on her. I went on YouTube. Every interview was about Bewitched. There wasn't any interview about her life. There wasn't any interview about her charitable contribution. There wasn't any interviews about her mindset. How do you survive being a child star and go on to have a productive, happy life? She's the mother of 6 kids.
Yeah.
Okay. So we as artists, as we push away AI this way, we need to reject boomer values this way.
Yeah. Which
is, don't tell me how valuable or non-valuable I am in your system. You know, it's the classic top 50, the greatest 50 guitar riffs of all time. Like, who gives a shit? It doesn't mean anything.
I'm with
you,
man.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing on streaming is like, have you ever?
Oh,
is that time to go?
Yeah. What do I do? Maybe.
Okay, last thing. Has anyone ever recommended an artist to you, and you go and you look somebody up on whatever streaming service? You're like, holy shit, this guy's got 27 million. Like, I never even heard of this person. There's no publicity.
Yeah,
that shows you that shit's changing. You can't. The gatekeepers are gone. The pitchforks and the stones dead in the water. They have no influence anymore on what people are actually connecting to. Do they have an influence? Yes, but the gatekeeping is gone. So freaks like me are going to run wild in this new system because you can't stop us, because I'm not beholden to any country. I release my own records. I have all my own publishing, 100%, every song.
Yeah.
Haven't sold anything.
Well, listen, man, thank you for doing this podcast. Exactly. I appreciate
Chicago style. Is this how your chats normally go?
They're all different.
Okay.
This is how I hope this one would go.
Okay, good.
I think that we still have to,
But I got to hit this thing because
it
just needs to sum up our chat.
Yeah, exactly.
This is how I feel about our chat.
I think there will be a next time you're on and we talk about professional wrestling, we talk about all kinds of other shit. We've got a lot to dive into, but I think this is a bit of a hero's journey.
Oh, thank you. Working on it.
And I am, this is so fucking cool, man. It's just cool to have you here.
Thank you.
I always I can tell you all the amazing things that Smashing Pumpkins did for me as somebody who was in a cover band in high school who would cover your songs.
What songs would you cover?
I mean, you had to do, well, at the time it was like Siamese Dream was everything.
Yeah.
So, and like, how crazy is that? And then, because of that kind of thing, I was like, I can do this too.
Yeah.
And now I'm here.
That's to me. That's the greatest compliment I get as an artist is you inspire me to pick up a guitar or piano, and I write my own songs, and I don't sound anything like you, but you inspired me to do my thing. That is the compliment. That is a compliment. That to me, that's the supreme compliment. So thank you.
Then take that compliment, and I am excited for the day that people like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame recognize that
it ain't going to be anytime soon.
That you belong on the highest peaks of our business, and you are fantastic, and thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Here's what we know. Last word. It's all changing. It's going to change. It's time it changed. And ultimately, not anytime soon, but ultimately it will benefit the artist.
I agree.
And the maturation really is ultimately the audience's maturation and understanding that their support, their peer-to-peer support of artists that's the best way to vote if you want to change what you see and what you don't like, is to support the artist directly. Find at least one artist that you love and admire and give them your support. Just give them your support. Even if it's just, even if you're just clicking, just give them your support. That's the key to change. That's my speech.
There you go.
Thank you.